Hello, friends. On this glorious day in drink history, I'm playing catch up because it's exciting times here at Anchor Distilling Company. Sleep has been in rare supply as we wrapped up production of our first short film, a collaboration with Nika Whiskey about Japanese bartending culture, and I'm excited for that to be released in coming weeks. And boy, is it going to be cool. In other news today, we officially start digging into the interviews I did in Las Vegas, which are also kind of awesome. So let's do this. This episode of the Educational Drinking Show is sponsored by Junipero Gin, which is the original American craft gin going back to 1996 and the pioneering work of Fritz Maytag, which also makes it the gin of San Francisco. At 98.6 proof, it's a bit stronger than most gins and perfect in your favorite gin cocktail. Good stuff. My guest today is Craig Wolf. Mr. Wolf is the president and CEO of the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, which is a post he's held since 2006. And he's also served our country overseas as a part of Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. The Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America was founded in 1943 and is a national trade association with 366 wine and spirits wholesalers operating throughout the United States. As one of the most influential trade organizations in Washington, it's the WSWA's job to serve as the voice of the wine and spirits wholesalers, and their work has a direct impact on our experience as spirits professionals and enthusiasts. So it's my great pleasure to share our interview with Craig Wolf with you now.
We were founded during wartime. And back then, everybody was struggling and because of the lack of resources. So if you weren't represented, if your industry wasn't represented in Washington, you could pretty much get shut down. So it was important to have that representation back then, and it's just important today. Everything that happens in Washington and across this country has an effect on us, and it's whether it be legal laws, regulations, court cases. We have to be engaged. We have to be involved, and our members have understood that. We're in our third, fourth, fifth generation now of members of WSWA, and they've passed that down from generation to generation, that if you want to do well in the world, you have to understand that it's not just about selling widgets, in this case, or selling wine and spirits in this case. It's about understanding the process, understanding how government can affect you, how laws can affect you, and you have to be part of the process to be able to help protect your interests.
And what does your membership look like at this point?
So we have, I think it's right now, about 105 or 6 main houses, but over 300 to 400 in branches as well of those houses. Consolidation it occurs, but we also know there's we have a list of about, it's more like 400 to 500 other wholesalers that are out there, smaller niche wholesalers, some bigger, some smaller, that we're constantly working to bring into the membership as well. So we know that there are hundreds and hundreds of wholesalers. Our membership comprises about 80% of the wine and spirits in terms of volume sold in this country. And of course, that's just the wholesale number, not counting the brokerage involvement they do as well.
What are some of the big issues that you guys are working on right now on behalf of your membership?
So, we have a number of issues. We've been focused on, from a industry standpoint, Tax and Trade Bureau. And the Tax and Trade Bureau is a business-friendly organization and regulatory organization. They're important. It's important to fund them adequately, and they have not been funded well. So we've been working as part of a larger industry group to coordinate additional funding. Now, it's very difficult in these budgetary times to find additional dollars, and we're not asking for a lot even. We were actually able, as an industry, to prevail upon Congress last year to provide additional $5 million for the Tax and Trade Bureau for formulas and for labels. Now, why is that important? Because if you have been following the industry at all, you know that we are in this huge boom of craft spirits, small wineries, craft breweries, and when they apply to TTB for their formulas and their labels, the process was taking forever because they don't have the manpower. So you would take 90 to 100 days to get a label or an approval or approved label. We were able to get $5 million for TTB last year as part of the appropriations process, and now we've cut the time to get labels, I think, more than half. So, the idea is, what we do matters, not just, to protect our own interests, but to help the industry in general. And so we work on that. So TTB is a big issue. We're looking for even more funding now. This year in other areas besides the formula and label side of things. So TTB is a big concern to us. Obviously, everybody's concerned about category management right now and how that affects things from a TTB standpoint. So we've been following that very closely, trying to get more guidance from TTB. Nobody wants to jeopardize their licenses, right? So following the law is very important. And this is an area where there's still, I think, a little bit of uncertainty. So we're very careful about that. Everybody's following marijuana legalization, right? What effect is marijuana going to have on the industry? How is it going to affect sales? Shouldn't they be treated in the similar manner to alcohol? We, as an association, are neutral on the subject of legalization of marijuana. We haven't taken a position. We're not going to be hypocrites and say, we should do it and not them. We're neutral. If the state wants to do this, it's in their power to do it, then that's fine. But we do think if they do legalize, if a state legalizes marijuana, they should hold that industry accountable just like they do, because marijuana, whatever you think about the marijuana versus alcohol debate in terms of, which is more potent, which has more good or bad effects, the fact is that you need to take any socially sensitive product that's capable of abuse, and you need to regulate it, and you need to tax it properly. So the same rules that our position is the same rules that apply to alcohol should apply to marijuana, right? If there's an age 21, a drinking age for alcohol, there should be a 21 age for smoking or ingesting marijuana. If there is a standard for DWI and DUI for alcohol, there needs to be a standard set for DUID as well, for driving the influence of drugs. So we're working on making sure that whatever laws are passed, both the federal and the state level, that everybody's on an equal playing field. And then it's ultimately up to the consumer and the businesses themselves.
You mentioned your work getting additional funding for the TTB. Is there any other work that you guys have done in recent years that you're really proud of that might affect the consumer or bartender experience?
Well, look, we are so the way I look at it is wholesalers are absolutely essential to the success of the craft industry. All right, we're proud of what's happening. We love the innovation. We love the new ideas. We love the energy, enthusiasm these crafts bring. But from our perspective, they need us to really grow. And so every wholesaler that I know of across the country has started either a separate division or a subdivision just dealing with craft, because they understand the importance. And look, I'm proud of the wholesalers for that, because we've often been criticized, through consolidation or other reasons, or other types of business changes that occur, that we're not sensitive to new brands, and that there's that we ignore them or in favor of the big established brands. And I think that's not true, because I can tell you this: no wholesaler that I know wants to be the wholesaler that lost the next Tito's, right? I mean, you want to make sure you're constantly scanning the environment, trying to find those particular craft distillers, those wines that you think are going to break through, and that have the right leadership, the right blend of labeling, packaging, and marketing, and they're willing to be partners with you. So they're always looking to do that. And I'm proud of the wholesalers for that. I think that they're getting ahead of the curve on this one.
How do you feel the second tier is really adapting to the changing landscape of spirits, particularly with the craft sector?
Well, again, they've all established divisions just to deal with craft, because they recognize the importance of it. And when I talk to wholesalers about this, they say they're very excited by the prospect. You're seeing at the national level things like line shifts, right? Well, I guarantee you, when a wholesaler loses a Bacardi, they've got so many choices now to try to rebuild their rum portfolio because of all the craft developments. So when you're seeing things change rapidly, that tells you something about the wholesalers and their interests. We look at the products that are good today, and some of the companies that are around today. And a few weeks ago, I was talking to one of the suppliers that were out there, and we tried to figure out what was still around that was around 50 years ago. Well, the question is not what's going to be around 50 years from now. The question is what's going to be around 10 years from now, because some of these crafts are going to demand shelf space. And where are people going to make changes? Well, I guarantee you it's going to be more a dynamic marketplace for the consumer.
And for consumers, they see the distilleries, they see the on and off premise accounts. A lot of the work I feel wholesalers do is really behind the scenes. Can you paint a picture of the importance of the wholesaler to the industry and also the economic impact?
Sure. So just talk about distribution, okay? If you're a small supplier out there, a small craft distiller, and you want to grow, okay? you can't do it on your own ultimately. You can do some local self-distribution if the laws allow it. You can do some of that. You can get your name out to the internet. You can do things like that. But what wholesalers provide is efficiency and scale. So from a distribution standpoint, if you think about it this way, if you're a supplier and you want to hit a couple 100,000 retailers at some point in the development of your company, think about that would take to do just to hit all those potential retailers across the country. You can't do it. You just cannot do it. And more importantly, if you want to do it, how much it would cost you to do it. All right. What wholesalers do is create that efficiency that we pull those products in and then get them out to those hundreds of thousands of retailers across the country, and we do it several times a week. Okay, so that's the efficiency we create. The other thing about wholesalers that people don't really see at the top end is they're market experts. They've been in these markets for generations. They have tremendous skill in identifying the trends. They know the customers. They know the localities by zip code. By block often. They will tell you of wine, for instance, that will appeal to a certain segment of the population in this block, but the next block over, it's a slightly different demographic. You want to go with this. So their ability to help people determine where they should grow and how they should grow is tremendous. Their knowledge base is just amazing. They obviously have a tremendous understanding of the data that's out there. Not just their own data, but they pull in data from all different sources, Nielsen, IRI, and on and on. So, and their own depletion data tells them a lot because they know where their products are going, where it's selling, and where it's not. So what wholesalers provide is on the distribution side efficiencies that you cannot replicate at all. And they provide obviously great local market intelligence.
Something I really admire about the work that you guys do is with the developing of the next generation of wholesale professionals through, I think it's your Developing Leadership Conference. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So the Council for Leadership Development is a big pet project of mine. And over the course of the 10 years that I've run the association, we've gone from an average of 30 to 40 attendees to last year in Oregon, we had over 70 attendees. Wholesalers, as I said earlier, we're multi-generational family businesses. What has allowed WSWA to thrive over the course of that time frame is the fact that no matter how hard our members compete every day against each other in the marketplace, they know each other. And they have a sort of companionship and friendship and understanding that together they can do what none of them can do individually. And so whatever competitive influences are affecting them, when it comes to our meetings, and even if they fought, and I'm in the courts and in the legislatures against each other, yesterday, when they come to our meetings, they're together. And they can talk, and they can sit at the same table, and the animosity doesn't persist in that environment. So I want to make sure that goes to the next generation. That the next generation can create those same relationships, that they understand the importance of government affairs, they understand the importance of public affairs, they understand the importance of the supplier tier and knowing what's important to them. Because when we have our meetings, our Council for Leadership Development meetings, our leadership meetings, then what they're learning is more than just the sales or the operations. They're learning about the bigger world they exist in. And to the extent they're able to see that bigger world, they're able to work within that bigger world in a more efficient and more effective manner. And to the extent they understand the big picture so that collectively they know they have power, that they can overcome certain obstacles they could never overcome individually, that's good for them.
When you're not here in Las Vegas at the big convention, what's an average day look like for you?
So, I go into the office in Washington. We're a $10 million organization. We have a PAC of $1 million a year. I'm president and CEO. So on the president's side, I'm the voice of the wholesale, right? And so in conventions, I do the speeches and et cetera. Internally, I'm the CEO, so I run the organization. So I'm a manager. I take care of the hiring and firing. I take care of all of the internal stuff, making sure we get audited every year, and that goes well, and budgeting, and you name it. So it's a multifaceted role. But day to day, what I will do is, I'll go in, I'll check emails like everybody else probably does. I'll make sure if I have any calls or emails to answer, I do it immediately. If it's a member especially, you can be sure I'm on it. I will speak to my members about issues. We'll have teleconferences all the time to talk about particular issues. We'll try to set up strategy sessions with my different departments and see where they are on issues. I will certainly have staff meetings to say, okay, where are we here? Where are we there? Have we made progress here? What do we need to do? And what I think of my role is, I have all these experts, right? I have lobbying experts, I have public affairs experts, I have meetings experts. So I started to try to look at it from 10,000 feet, and I don't micromanage, but I say, look, this is what you're telling me you're doing, okay? I'm not an expert in this, but here's my input and my feedback given my years of experience and given my broader sort of picture, my more generalized picture. So I try to help them in each of the departments and give them the benefit of my experience, and to have a way of looking at things that they wouldn't necessarily see. You know, a lot of people tend to get focused in their particular areas. So what I do is try to bring a broader perspective, a more 360 sort of look at things, and help them achieve and success. But I'm not a micromanager, but I am a detail person. So if I see a press release that has problems, I will help redraft it and I will work on it. If I see typos, or if I see a sign in the wrong place at the convention, or if I see a problem with the convention, or a problem with the app, I was coming up today and I posted pictures on our app today, and they didn't post. And so I said, okay, we're going to fix that right now. Not trying to micromanage, but again, another set of eyes for quality control. So I have sort of a multifaceted role in that regard.
When you wake up in the morning, what really inspires you? What gets you fired up? What's your favorite part of your job?
Any challenge, anything that's challenging. The normal, the routine, the mundane. That you have to do certain things. You have to get, you have certain things at a certain schedule, a certain time. We know this, but anything that sort of shakes things up, that makes them different, even if they're difficult issues. This category management issue has been very difficult because we've had members on different sides of the issue. The challenge of trying to work through that issue and finding a solution that made everybody happy. Those types of problems, those strategic kind of ways of looking at things. Where are the problems going to be? How do we address them? How do we get around them? That to me is the most exciting stuff. Sometimes it's not. If you look at it from the outside, you may think, well, category management, regulatory issue, but it's the dealing of it through relationships, understanding the legal environment, applying so many different fields to the solution, and so many different ways of perspective to the solution. That to me is the most challenging and the most fun.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey and how you got to doing the work that you're doing today?
So, if you had asked me, 30 years ago, where would I be? This would not have been even on the top 100 list. I didn't even know much about trade associations. I went to college and then I went to law school, sort of as a backup. I wasn't sure I wanted to be a lawyer, frankly. And I came out and I hated my job the first year. I was a lawyer in a trial defense type, litigation, factory kind of thing. And I hated it. So I said, look, I was in college. I studied South Asia. I'm gonna take a break. Picked up a backpack, went to India, Nepal, Thailand for 6 months. Just was a bum. Just backpack, and thought, okay, what do I want to do when I come back? So I decided in terms of I had three choices. I was going to join the FBI, I was going to be a prosecutor, or I was going to join the Army. All right. So when I got back, I basically did some odd jobs for a while, and then I got a job as a prosecutor. And I worked my way through the prosecution ranks. So I was a prosecutor, and it was different from being in private practice as a lawyer because you're doing justice every day. So I did that for a number of years, and I got progressed very quickly, made a lot of trial work, and then I ended up getting a job at the Justice Department. And I was a prosecutor there, but now federally as opposed to at the state level. And then, again, strange things happen. One day, I saw a picture in the newspaper of the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Orrin Hatch. And standing behind him was a guy I recognized. And he was a friend from law school I hadn't seen in 10 years. So I called up the office of the Judiciary Committee. I said, do you know this guy? Does his name ring familiar to you? And he said, yeah, well, this guy, Manus Cooney, is the chief attorney on the the Judiciary Committee. He's the chief attorney. And so I talked to him. We had lunch that summer. And then just, again, strange things. He called me the next January and said, can you come up to the Capitol Hill and do a detail, which means you're on loan from the Justice Department to Capitol Hill, work in the Judiciary Committee. You have a background in certain types of crimes that are important to our committee. And I came up there, and again, fortuitously, one day, one of the counsel came to me and said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you handle a meeting about wine, something about wine? I said, that's what you're telling me? He said, yeah, I don't even know what it's about, something about wine. And I handled the meeting. And it was, what was it about? It was direct shipping, right? And it was, about, what were the issues at that time? There was a state issue, state authority on the 21st Amendment. This is the very beginning of the battles of direct shipping. And so I took over the alcohol portfolio. And so when Justice Department was calling me back, I figured I'd been in government for 10 years. Let me see what's out there. And Juanita Dugan, who I'd met through the process, was looking for a lobbyist. And she said, you're not the right for this job. But she called back 2 weeks later and said, we could use a counsel. We could use general counsel. You have litigation background, you judiciary, you have a Hill background. Why don't you come on board, Judiciary Committee, from the Judiciary Committee to us? And I said, sounds good. So I took over as general counsel. And again, didn't know what I would do. I figured every 5 years I'd find a new job at this point. And 6 years later, I was still there when she left. And I thought, well, what are my options? I can continue my counsel job, or I can go for the top job. And I applied through that process, and it was a difficult process, but they had faith in me, and I got the job, and I've been 10 years now in the job. So not looking back, but again, from where I started, from law school and a lawyer to this head of a trade association in this industry. Although I have to tell you, I started out in the alcohol industry. My uncle was a retailer in Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, really?
And I worked for him in high school and as part of college. And the funny thing is, of course, working for him, was usually the worst times of the year were when, right? Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year. And the hours were unbelievable, and the workload was incredible. And when I finally stopped working for my uncle, I thought to myself, I'm never going back to the alcohol industry. I'm never doing this again. And yet I come back on the wholesale side.
Do you have any insights about the landscape of the wholesale world over the next 5 years and how it might change?
I think you're going to see continued mergers and consolidations at some level. I think what's interesting is, I'm not sure, but I think you'll see some more line shifts that are going to take place. Because once you have a large line shift like the Bacardi line shift that took place, it shakes things up. And if Bacardi goes one place, well, the people in Bacardi, where they move to might not necessarily be happy that Bacardi's there now, and they may want to move. So I could see some more juggling of lines that might take place. From a wholesale perspective, I think, look, we are part of a business, and all businesses go through cycles. So every business cycle you'll see is, consolidate, break up, or you get new players, small and fringe players coming in, because the bigger you get, sometimes if you're not careful, you become moribund. You become too paralyzed. You're not flexible enough. You're not quick enough on your feet. So that's a danger for when you get too big, that you think you've got it all figured out, and you're not constantly innovating and trying to move ahead. But it offers opportunities, right? You've got all these craft beverages out there right now looking for distribution, and if you think Southern or one of the other big companies, Breakthrough or R&DC, is the place for you, you might be right, but you might be smart to go with one of the smaller players that are out there, and even some of the newer players that are out there, because maybe they'll give you more attention initially. Look, if you do well, they're going to find you. The bigger guy's going to find you, but it may be smarter to start out with a small wholesaler in a single state or a couple states and build your brand and learn the business. And then when you get, over time, as you get better at understanding the industry and get more relationships and contacts, and you figured out how things work, then you're going to move up. Some people make the mistake, from my perspective, of coming in thinking, I'm going to go with Southern. I got to get Southern. I got to get distribution across the country, and they do that, but they're not prepared for the nature of a partnership that is, because it's not just saying, well, I've got a distributor and I'm done. No, you've got to be a partner, which means you've got to work across the country. So getting distribution, by a large member of mine is a great thing if you're capable of scaling up yourself as well and being that partner for them. So you have to think about what's best for you.
And finally, our audience for this show is really largely bartenders. Is there anything that you'd like to share in terms of a message for bartenders?
Well, bartenders are doing great things for the industry, right? I mean, the way I look at it is the mixologists that are out there, what they're doing is they're creating this tremendous interest in new products and in a diverse array of products. And not just, by the way, not just wine and not the spirits themselves, but also all the collateral products that go along with it to make these great concoctions. So I think that they are responsible for a lot of what's going on today. I think they were some of the first to see the value of taking some of these craft products and doing something new with them and different with them, and seeing the value in trying to expand the types of drinks and types of experiences the consumer can have. So I look at mixologists and I say, these are brand builders themselves, and it's a great thing.
Is there anything we didn't talk about that you'd like to add?
No, I look, I can tell you this, WSWA as an organization tries to be very flexible, very quick, and very responsive to our members. And I'm very proud of the organization. It is a very unusual organization in Washington, where you get this, even today, you get to deal with the principals as a leader. A lot of organizations out there, they have managers who now come in, so you don't get the decision-making capability, you don't get the responsiveness. That's something that I really cherish, and the members of WSWA are just great people. And if you haven't met them and don't really know them very well, it's not just they're really smart and adaptive, and that's why they're third and fourth and fifth generation. But they're good people. They care about their local communities, and they work hard to make sure that we're a responsible industry, and that's important to me.
Thank you so much for taking the time today.
You got it. You take care. Good luck.